Hello and welcome to the very next episode of the Reasonably Priced Campervan. So in the last video you saw me unboxing the Voltanic solar panels and the DC to DC charger with built-in MPPT capability. So in this video what I'll be getting into is the install. So with that all being unboxed and ready to go, I hope to use the best part of this Sunday to get the solar panels mounted to the ceiling on the outside, obviously, with the solar cable gland fitted to the rear of the roof with the cables dropping in. So with that said, let's get straight into it. Okay, so up on the roof, so haven't mounted the brackets to these, but I was just experimenting with the layout. I've figured out that I do need to have them in this orientation. There isn't enough space to have them going front to back either side. Might have been possible if I had built a rack, and that could be something I could do later on, but at least for now what I'm going to be doing is using these Z brackets mounted to the underside of the solar panel, and that will be fixed to the roof itself. So what I've already determined, because of these ridges of the van and the alignment of the pre-drilled holes in the frame for these brackets, I can't actually mount from this way on because the hole in the brackets isn't big enough for the full plate to be secured. So I think what I'm going to be doing is drilling fresh holes to the sides of the panels here for the brackets to be mounted. I'll just put this down a sec, I'll show you. To be mounted on this final ridge along the van, so it will have bracket here, same on this panel, and then there'll be 4 fixing points for each panel. But one thing that is really important for you to consider when installing these is the clearances between, if you might have a front or a rear vent, fan or vent, and then the same for the front. And this is pretty much snug, almost designed to fit, which is perfect for the aesthetic I'm looking for. So there is still going to be some spaces towards the rear and just to the front here, but that could be used for something maybe in the future. I mean, who knows? Starlink, 5G antenna, TV antenna, I just don't know. So that's just something to think about for the future. So with that said, I'm going to get these panels down, get these frames re-drilled, so I've got mounting points for these brackets. I'll secure the brackets to the panels, get them back on the roof, and then we'll start marking out the holes that I need to drill to secure them down into the van. And then once that's done, we'll move to the driver's side corner at the rear where the cable entry is going to be for the cabling going down into the van to go down that rear pillar, as I explained in my last video. So with that said, let's crack on. Slight change of plan, but I'll talk you through it. So what I came to realise when I was looking at the solar panels a bit more closely, the framing is thinner on the narrower edges as opposed to the longer straight edge. So I have to mount the brackets on the longer side, but what I'm going to do, and I've marked with blue tape, is I'm going to re-drill the frame as I originally suggested on the underside, where this protruding piece underneath is wider. That's obviously going to then sit underneath the panel, and I'm going to have to drill 2 fresh holes into this blanking plate so that I can get solid fixing into this ridge of the van. So I've marked my positions in all 4 corners, and I'm going to have to do a similar thing for the other panel here. But because the panels are actually quite close together, what I may find that I need to do is have the mounting points in a different place for the opposite panel, if you get me. So I'm going to crack on with the first panel. I need to get this down, drill those, and I'll come back and fill you in as to where things look. Okay, so back on the floor. So continuing using the tape as my marker, I've marked the holes. You can see that the existing holes in the solar panels don't align with the ridges on the van. So I've marked, hopefully you can see that just there, a new point that I'm going to be drilling, and the same there. And I'm going to use this block of wood that sits underneath the lip there, just to make sure, obviously when I'm drilling, I don't go into the panel, because that would be a disaster. So I've marked all my 4 corners. I'm just going to start with a pilot hole and then gradually build that into a larger hole to take the nut that's required, and then I can get the brackets on. So crack on. Okay, so freshly drilled, started off with a very small pilot hole and then just took it up to a bigger drill bit, very slow and steady. So if I just check these are the bolts used for the brackets, and they fit perfectly. So cracking on, get these brackets mounted and then we'll get it back up on the roof. So now moving on to the brackets, what I'm going to do, as I said before, is I'm going to drill these extra 2 holes for mounting. So I need to do that on all 4 brackets before I can then secure them to the panel and then get on the roof. So I'll just get these pilot holes drilled out with the larger one to take the self-tapping screws. I'll crack on with that and I'll be back in a moment. Just drilled out. Obviously you saw drill bit broke, they often do, and then that leaves me with holes large enough to take the supplied screws, self-tapping screws with a rubber washer. Obviously that's going to create a better seal, but I will obviously be going over this with the supplied Sikaflex 522 as well, just to get that extra bond, but also make it watertight. So that will be dropped onto the top of the van. So I won't film this, but I'm just going to drill exactly the same holes across the other remaining 3 brackets for this first panel, and then I'll get the brackets secured and we'll see how we go from there. Okay, so that's all drilled out and ready, so I can just offer up the back brackets now to the panel, and I'm just going to drop the bolt in from the underside. And then drop the nut on top. And then I believe it was a 10mm. Yep, that may not work. 10mm socket. Might be better to use a spanner in all honesty, but pliers will be fine for now. And in fact, I may need a spanner, so I'm going to pause for a spanner. I'll be right back. and back with a 10mm spanner and a deeper socket, and I can just nip that up as tight as I need. I may in fact just put the ratchet on it for a bit more leverage. There we go. Solid. So I'm going to repeat the process on all 4 corners, and then we're ready to get the panel up on the roof. So I'll be looking to mount the panel, but I need to mark the holes when it's on the roof, drill the holes. I was contemplating putting some plywood on the underside, under the van, for the, obviously once the self-tapping screws penetrate the metal, I was thinking of having some plywood on the inside of the van for that to nip into, just to give it a bit more of a firmer bond. But we'll see how we go. That's what I was thinking. So I might need to cut some ply for that, and because I've already plastic lined the ceiling with the recycled plastic, I may need to cut some out. So I'll get this done anyway, and then we'll see where we go from there. So I'm just going to crack on with the other 3 corners, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to get this back up on the roof. Half a milestone, so up on the roof now, secured into position, ready to mark the holes for drilling. But before I do that, I'm just going to repeat exactly the same process with the other panel, get the brackets drilled, secured. I may need to stagger the brackets because I'm not sure that I've got enough clearance between the 2 panels to have the bracket in the same place, so I may need to move it, one ridge along on the roof, but I'll figure that out in the next series of steps, and I'll come back with an update once I've got the bracket secured onto the panel. I'll bring it up, make sure I've got the right alignment, and then I'm ready to start drilling into the roof again, which is always a bit of a daunting prospect, but it needs to be done. And then once they're secured, I can move on to the cable gland, which is going to go in that back corner over there. So I'm going to crack on, and I'll come back with an update in just a few. See you shortly. Okay, so here's where we landed. Both panels placed, so I've just left enough clearance. Obviously this vent rises, so I don't need to worry about this tilting back and clashing with the edge of the solar panel, but then it's quite close to the rear one. So all that's left for me to do now is to mark my mounting points. I might drill a very thin pilot hole to see where, on the underside, where the holes are coming through, and then I'm going to decide whether or not I'm actually going to put some plywood on the underside, because the self-tapping screws will obviously go through the bracket, through the metal skin of the van, and I think I might prefer just something to bite into, so might cut some very thin plywood strips the width of these ridges to sit on the underside, just for those screws to bite into, and obviously there'll be Sikaflex in there as well. So I mean, so that's the plan. So I will crack on with marking these up, and I will let you know how we fare. So I will be back shortly. Wind's starting to pick up now, but I've been through and drilled pilot holes for all of the spots that the solar panels will be mounted, but I also took the opportunity just to put an extra bead of Sikaflex around my rear vent, because I did have a very small leak. So just belt and braces, because once the panels are down, I don't think I'll be able to have that opportunity again. So that's been sorted. It might be difficult to film this next portion of the video, but essentially what I'll be doing is dropping some Sikaflex around the holes, the pilot holes that I've drilled, placing the solar panel in place, and then screwing down with the self-tapping screws. But we'll see how we go. If I can film it, I will. So I'll come back to you with an update shortly. Okay, so Sikaflex at the ready. Perhaps wasn't the smartest thing to do that, because now I don't know where my holes are. May have just made things really hard for myself because I put the Sikaflex down and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to line up the holes in such a manner that, yeah, it's going to be straightforward. So we'll see. Maybe get one in partially. And I can at least then start to pivot the corners. Not in the right place. But this one I think is. Seems to be going down. So I'm just wanting to start the screws off really, and I'll come back round and nip them tight. Oops. Okay, that's all the screws started. I'm just going to drive them home. Okay, first panel down, solid. I think what I'm going to do is, because it looks like it might rain, I might pause here. We'll see. I'm going to have a break anyway, maybe get something to eat. Still to decide whether or not I actually want some plywood underneath, but I can go on the inside of the van now and check that out. Gather my thoughts whilst getting a coffee perhaps. So that's the first panel down. Obviously still got the second panel to do, and the entry gland as well for the cabling. So I'll get that sorted throughout the rest of this video, but I'm just going to take a break for now. Getting pretty tired. So I'll be back shortly. So as I was talking about earlier, actually what I found was that the self-tapping screws weren't firm enough just to hold the solar panel in place. So what I've just done is I've located where the screws penetrated, and I've just put some 18mm ply which I've secured up to the insulation with Sikaflex. And obviously when this is a bit firmer, what I'll be able to do is drive that screw into the ply so it will really bind better to it, and the same on the opposite side. But what I've discovered is that the mounting points on the frontmost part of this one panel, they actually sink into this channel. So I've yet to see exactly how I'm going to combat that. I don't quite know right now, but I'm just going to let these bits harden just up here, and then I'll get the back down, because I'm thinking that's probably sufficient to hold the panel down. Obviously it's all bracketed to the panel and it'll be absolutely solid on the back. It does also have Sikaflex underneath the brackets as well, so it should be perfectly fine. So I'm just gonna let that harden, take that break that I was calling for because I haven't had it yet, and then we'll see how we go for the next panel. So yeah, I'll be back later. Bye for now. Okay, so I've had my break and I've secured this back panel into the plywood which I previously put up, and then if I just take you up to the top, using exactly the same method, I've now secured the front panel as well. So I now have a pair. I'm going to move the van shortly, just to come forward so I can get that rear cable entry gland mounted and secured, because obviously the Sikaflex is open. So onto the cable entry gland now. So decided to drop that just there, with the cables able to run down the side of the vent, under the panel for tidiness, because this is where the connectors finish. So obviously the fresh connectors from the new cable will run under the panel. They'll be secured to this panel somehow. I believe there are tabs to secure them. So I need to drill a 20 mil hole in the top there, and then the cable will just be able to drop through, go down the channel, and then down the rear pillar of the van. So got that marked up, gonna get the drill out shortly, and I'll crack on. Step drill bit, hole in the van. So I'll go and get my cables, I'll run the cable, and I'll get that ready for bonding, and that's hopefully another straightforward job done. Back in a sec. Okay, armed with the cables, I should be able to run these down now through the gland. Both positive and negative. I'm just going to grab the ends and just make sure I can pull it through so I can get rid of all this slack and then take it on the inside of the van. Okay. So I should be able to just feed this through now. I'll no doubt need more slack when I'm reattaching, but now I can get this secured. So I'm just going to go and grab some blue tape so I can hold that down once I've got the Sikaflex on. So bear with me a sec. Just a little bit extra because I'm finding my bonding skills using this stuff are not the best. So I can now place this down. Just keen to get a really good watertight seal. So it's been a bit of a slog and it's by no means finished yet, but the panels are mounted. I'm just going to go over the screws with the final bits of Sikaflex just to coat them, just for that added water ingress protection, I suppose. The cable gland is now secured, so when that's a bit firmer, what I'll do is I'll tweak the cables and tighten the threads to secure that cable. So I think that's pretty much it for now. So I'll get all that sorted and I'll come back with a final conclusion to the video, some thoughts about how I think the install went and some things I might have done differently had I have tried this before. So yeah, so I'll be back in just one more moment. And there you have it, finished result. So I just need to peel the tape off the the entry gland at the back once that's hardened a little more, and that's me done for today. So may take a bit of a break. I do need to tidy up the cabling from the inside, and then what I'll probably do is sort the DC to DC charger and the MPPT unit in a future video. So I just wanted to talk real quick about some things I might have done different. So I think in hindsight I would have perhaps preferred to have installed the solar panels as one of the first things ahead of doing all the installation and such. Sorry about that. Couldn't make it up. Yeah, so I would have preferred to have done the solar install perhaps earlier in the build, because I did have obviously the recycled plastic insulation did cause me some frustration when the screws hit that. Obviously it wraps around the thread of the self-tapping screws, so that was a bit of a pain. Now my skills using Sikaflex or CT1, whichever sealant is your preference, are not the best, and I do worry about the long-term water tightness of the things that I've bonded. So until that's really sort of hardened and we've had some rain, or I'll give it a hose test, I'm not really gonna know how watertight it actually is, and subsequently if I do have any leaks, then that's something that I'll need to tackle and figure out. So I'll keep you guys posted on all of that. So keen to draw this video to a close. Thank you for sticking with me throughout this build process. It's been a little bit of a challenge for me. It's the first time I've done something like this, so I'm enjoying the process of learning new skills and trying new things. I'm sure that should I later do another campervan, then I'll perhaps do things in a slightly different way. Been struggling with the weather of late, as I'm sure everyone has seen. The immense amount of rainfall that we've had, that's set me back. So I was just keen to get back on track and keep the videos and the content going as well. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please drop me a like or a comment. Let me know about your thoughts on what I've done, how I've done it. Appreciate there are perhaps better ways, so I'm open to learning. It's an educational reason for doing this. I'm wishing to learn new skills and try different things, and I'm not a professional installer. This is just a DIY install of in this case solar, and in future updates there'll be more on the electrical system, and then soon after that probably the ceiling will follow. So with that all being said and done, please do feel free to subscribe. There'll be more content coming. If you haven't yet seen, check my previous videos for other things that I've done already in the build, and I will drop this video into the regular playlist so you can catch all those videos in one spot. So have a great day, and it's been a pleasure sharing this somewhat frustrating process with you, albeit the products are amazing and the way that they've come packaged with everything that you need is great. The only bad experience I guess I would voice from this going through this process is my skills are not the best. So I'm figuring out things as I go along. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll